And one of the things that I've noticed is the potent role of awareness or consciousness, that in many ways the health of a relationship, the health of a life, can be measured in how much consciousness there is. A present witness with the ability to respond to asymmetries, to things that are out of balance and in pain, and restore balance and ease. Now, I had an experience this evening which highlights the value of boundaries as a vehicle for infusing relationship and life with awareness, with consciousness. And particularly in the United States, there's a little bit of a dogma around freedom that goes against this. It's very unusual for an American to willingly choose to have less freedom, meaning you give an American a choice. You can either have 50 choices of shampoo, or you can have one choice of shampoo, and every American chooses 50 types of shampoo. You tell an American you can shop 24/7, or you can only shop between 5 p.m. and midnight, or on a Tuesday, and they'll choose 24/7. You get the idea. Now, interestingly, a study on choice does not correlate choice with happiness. It correlates choice with regret. There was an experiment done in which someone was asked to choose a painting to take home, and that was it. That was a final choice. They could not change their mind, and these people enjoyed the painting they chose immensely. Now, the second group of people was invited to choose a painting, but they were told that if they ever had any doubt that the painting they picked was not the best painting, they could come back and exchange it. And regardless of the painting they picked, these people were less happy with the painting, and they ruminated. They second-guessed. It's like, maybe that was the wrong choice. Maybe another painting was better. And they think about it periodically, and that rumination questions the value of what they chose. So they may continue with the painting they chose. They're just not clear that it was the right choice. And their uncertainty does not leave them wholeheartedly committed to enjoying the painting. Now, this is a positive aspect of marriage. Those of you in the dating pool may find yourself in the same dynamic of, there's this woman with, great sex. There's this guy who's a very interesting conversationalist, but doesn't have any money. There's this person who's very rich, but it's a little bit weird. Which is the right one? And the truth is, there's pros and cons to everyone, but staying in this perfectionistic kind of stage of choice generally means that whoever we choose, particularly when there isn't a strong commitment, there's a part of us thinking, I'll bet the sex would be better right now with so-and-so. Oh, I wouldn't be bored and irritated if I had chosen so-and-so. And this breeds dissatisfaction. Now, this is just a little bit of context for an experience that has taken place over the last several weeks. Now, my sweetheart has made it very clear that she would like a monogamous relationship. And because she's gorgeous, because she's attentive, because she enjoys sex as much or more than I do, and because we live together 24/7, I don't have an issue. I lean towards monogamy. But with an experience with roughly 70 lovers over the course of a lifetime, I am very aware that while I've never met the perfect partner, and they may not exist, every single person is different. And there is an exquisiteness in variety. There are things in almost every partner that I have not experienced in any other relationship. It may be the intensity of need and emotional vulnerability in one relationship. It may be the exquisite sensitivity and touch in another relationship. It may be the sexual desire. It may be the intensity of trust, the intensity of presence. It may be the massiveness of a body. It may be the playfulness of a very petite body, that you can lift up and play around with in yoga and different things. And so every single person has traits, and they are unique. Now, because I'm living 24/7 with my sweetheart, and because I think it's generally healthy to have some space, and she has different goals and stuff that she works on, I try to do a 1 or 2 hour massage with a Thai masseuse. We're here in Thailand together. And this is a wonderful addition to the day. Now, because I believe in fidelity, I've never cheated on a partner, never lied to a partner, it's important to clarify, particularly in a highly sensual environment in which maybe 50% of the Thai masseuses, at least in Phuket, a more touristy area, try to upsell a special ending, a happy ending, etc., masturbation, etc. And so in this environment, it's very important to know what is and is not cheating. And so we kind of went through it step by step. Kissing on the lips, no. No meaning my sweetheart doesn't like that. So kissing on the lips, no. Pecks on the cheek, okay. Full nudity, no. The masseuse does not get nude. Well, it's a little bit odd. It felt odd to me, so I haven't engaged in this, but my partner said if I wanted to masturbate myself, okay, but masseuse cannot touch my penis. And so that's clear. And I cannot touch the masseuse's breasts, anus, or vagina. So this is the boundary. Now, I do not like massages with people who do not like me, without an emotional connection, and with people I do not like. Now, it's the emotion and the touch that I'm concerned with, not the visual. I've had a wonderful masseur, though there's 10 times more masseuses than masseurs, and and it's a little bit more natural. I enjoy flirting, and so it's a little bit more natural with a woman. So the touch is the number one thing. Can I coach them to touch me with present integrated touch? Now, I have 3 masseuses at the present time, and they're all different. There's who I spent time with tonight, very shy, rather hesitant, works in a non-sexual massage shop with a little bit of a snooty boss that kind of wants to make sure nothing's going on. And so there's She does a wonderful therapeutic massage. And then there's Kalo, who has a very big body, a little bit bigger than mine, and I laugh with her enormously. We play around a lot. And then there's Pop, who is the youngest of them all, is one of the most sensual and sexually passionate people I have ever met in my life. Her skin is just incredible. And she has tried to engage in passionate sex every single time I've gone there, to a point that I've stopped going there for a while because she kept arriving in a towel, dropping the towel, which is crossing a boundary, and for my sweetheart. And so just, being on alert to, hey, put your towel back on and stuff. But she is absolutely passionate, and arouses more lust than almost any woman I've ever met. And it was interesting that my partner, who was worried about this, she said, it's dangerous to, be aroused by these masseuses. I'm worried about you being seduced. And I said, Jen, that hasn't happened. I've had at least 70 lovers, never cheated on anyone. I do what I want to do with my body. And if I decide I do want to be sexual with someone more than I care about our relationship, that will be symptomatic of, quite a deterioration in our quality of relationship. And two, I will tell you about it first, and we'll have the chance to renegotiate or end as you prefer. But things don't just happen in my world. They happen because I allow them. I create them. And while I absolutely love Pop's sexual energy, I absolutely love the way she feels on my skin, I absolutely love how aroused I feel. And in the moment, I would feel absolute exquisite joy surrendering to her seductions. I'm very clear of the boundary in the moment. And I'm not going to do that to you. And so this is kind of a little bit of the context. And so I've been spending time with At because Pop got a little bit too sexual, and At is kind of the opposite. And so I've been spending time with her. And she on a number of occasions moved her lips towards my lips, and I said, watch the boundary. And yesterday, for the third time, she kind of moved my hand towards her breast, or towards her rather stiff bra, and again I held the boundary. Now, I really wanted to touch At's breasts at the time. Some of it was nurturing. That's a big part of what I'm working with the massage, is the nurturing, the healing of At is the most mothering. Kalo is the most sistering. It's not a very sexual, it's a very playful energy with Kalo, and then we've got the passionate lust with Pop. But At is very mothering in a beautiful way. It's very, very healing and hits the spot. So, but in a mothering way, when I'm regressed into, 2, 3, 5 years old and just feeling emotions and stuff like that, a 5-year-old, a 2-year-old looks for a mother's breast. And so there's some of that energy there as well. So I just was aware that I was fighting my own desire, and that didn't seem fully healthy. So last night I, shared with my partner my concern about being in a dynamic in which I was fighting my own desire, number one, fighting myself, for her, meaning I didn't believe that it was good for me to fight this desire. I felt it was healthy and positive that, given my depressive temperament of too much rigidity and rules and stuff, that actually opening up would be healthy for my temperament. So, I've been reading and learning a little bit about psychological temperaments, and too much structure and rigidity leads to the tendency to be depressed. So, bottom line is, we had a rich emotional conversation, and this in and of itself was the best part of the whole thing. My partner went through all her different ages, feeling of abandonment at 8 years old, feeling terrified at 6 years old, feeling generous at 10 years old, feeling afraid, at 12 years old, 14-year-old feeling heartbroken, 18-year-old feeling hatred and resentment, all these different inner ages, which is a very, very beautiful. I was just so proud of her, the way she was able to articulate that in the top 1% of human beings I've met by far. And we loved each one. We spent time with the 6-year-old and held them. We spent time with the 8-year-old. We heard what each person had to say. What was the fear? What was the issue? What was the underlying dread or insecurity? What was the hatred? Who, because like the 12-year-old was loyal to the 14-year-old. The 14-year-old was, feeling very much that as, someone in a primary love language of touch, that touch equaled love, and, what that could mean. And so we just held and explored and cared, and I've just, anyway, it was a magnificent moment for our relationship to bring awareness, respect, articulation, consciousness to all the ages on the whole thing. But at the end of it, what we decided was that I'd do an experiment with At as the most conservative of the three masseuses. She's always very nervous and hesitant and like, oh, someone's coming, And so, and that's, just with a hug or something. And so, so we decided that as an experiment, we would open up At's body, since she'd been trying to kiss me and trying to have me touch her breasts. We'd open up At's body from the waist up and see if that helped our relationship or didn't help it. Was it positive for me? Was it positive for us? Was it positive for Jen? What was the impact on that? And that we would assess. And so tonight, the first thing I noticed was we both had dreams last night about sexuality that made us a little bit nervous, number one. And I won't go into the exact dreams, but then the next thing was that I didn't particularly want to go and see At and kind of test and explore the boundaries. But later this evening, I did go and have a massage with At. And at the beginning of the massage, because I've been saying to her, it's not personal. It's not that I don't feel aroused. It's not that I don't like you. But I've told Jen I'm not going to kiss on the lips, and I'm not going to touch breasts, and you cannot touch my penis. And so I'm just respecting that boundary. And this is not entirely easy to get across the language barrier, but she understands. She's met Jen, and Jen's met her, and so she's aware that I'm engaged. Now, so I told her at the beginning of the massage, breasts and lips are okay. I've talked with Jen, it's okay. Now, interestingly, and this is where consciousness comes up, there's a rather irritating phenomena that illustrates what I'm about to talk about. When I am not single, and particularly when I'm in absolute heaven with a partner, women will come up to me and say, I wish, wow, you look so great together. I wish I had a man like you in my life, da da da. And I always find this irritating because I've been single more often than not, due to being rather particular about. And these women never come up when I'm single. It's irritating as hell. You have to work really hard to find the right chemistry, etc. And as soon as you find it, all these women who wouldn't give you the time of day want to, find someone just like you. So it's very irritating. And then if I end the relationship and update them, they're never interested. So it's this irritating game. But the point is that when something is not available, people feel comfortable pressing up against it. It's like, and some of this is just a lack of discernment. Most human beings in a relationally illiterate culture cannot tell the difference between a potentially great partner for them and a potentially terrible partner. And so they rule out everyone in this hypercritical red flagging kind of thing. I'll bet that person would be bad, blah, 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 until they see the person having a very successful relationship with someone and treating someone the way they want to be treated. Then they believe in the person because that person is demonstrating, like, I want to be her. So then they believe it. But as soon as they're single, then they don't believe it. See, I knew there must have been a red flag, or they'd still be together or something. Who knows what the logic is. But the point is that people who are demonstrating the ability to take excellent care with someone suddenly become attractive if someone cannot tell the difference between a great person who's single and a poorly fitting person. Now, all I know is I'm a lot more attractive when I'm not available, which is kind of a waste because I truly am not available. I've never cheated on a partner and do not intend to. Now, so now I've let At know I'm more available. Well, she never moves my hand to her breast tonight. She never tries to kiss me. So I've moved towards her, and it's a little bit like a kite. I've given her too much slack. So this is one reason that I've had one of the most uncomfortable massages with that in a while. Is, first of all, I was divided. Last night when At was trying to kiss me and I was pushing it away, and when she was trying to have me touch her breast and I was drawing the boundary, I felt completely calm, but a lot of desire, and was just feeling like, why am I doing this? Other than, of course, keeping an agreement. Now, I didn't feel as grounded and centered without that boundary today. Number one. Number two, At's energy pulled back from me moving closer. Irritating, of course, but that's can often happen. And I felt more in my head around making stuff happen or not happen rather than in being in the flow. And so this is my point, that the boundary of monogamy, as we have defined it, has been very good for our relationship. And it's been incredibly healing and healthy. Now, there's a way, though, that when I feel controlled, my sexual energy goes down with my partner as well. Meaning, if I feel like my sexual energy is the enemy, like I can't express it here and do what I want, and I can't express it here and do what I want, and I can't express it there, and it's breaking agreement here, I put a governor on that energy. And the trouble is that the same governor that governs my arousal states with this woman and this woman and this woman and this woman and this woman, it also governs my arousal with my partner. The brain does not seem to be able to differentiate and say, have massive arousal levels with this person and don't think this thought with this person, don't let it get past this point with this person, don't look at this person this way. It's just too complicated, and so it slows the whole energy down versus opening up. And this, with my sweetheart, it's been a little bit dicey getting to a point where I can tell her everything I think and feel about every woman and inquire about any of her fantasies. Because I like that kind of intimacy, number one. Number two, I don't like the idea that it's somehow cheating, that I'm having a secret life in some way. And so I want to include my partner not only in the fantasy, but also why I'm not acting on it. Why, even though this masseuse or this individual who's very erotic and is single, and I might explore a relationship with, why I'm not doing that. Because they don't have the free time, they've got young children that can't travel easily, they don't want to learn the language, they're too lazy to read any of my books, and I want real deep mental emotional communication of a nature that is 1 in 500 what I've got with my sweetheart, and to find 1 in 500 that's actually available and single and interested and all, it's a big deal, and it takes years sometimes to find that good a fit. So it's wasteful to throw away such a fine diamond and then go back in the mines and hunt around with pick and crowbar for 1, 2, 3, 4 years to sort through and find another one that's different, but of that caliber of compatibility. And I'm talking about the caliber of compatibility, not the caliber of the essence of the person. Now, the reason I'm talking about this is that in San Francisco, for example, where I come, there is a tremendous emphasis on open relationship and the freedom and liberation of everything not being defined and no commitments and no this, and nobody should control anyone, and jealousy is bad, and da-da-da-da-da. And I would suggest that quite the opposite. That having clearly defined boundaries that are choreographed to bring out the best in one another, that relaxing boundaries slowly enough, if you do relax them, that someone is not dissociating, but is rather having a chance to fully integrate and work with the beliefs, the fears, the traumas around abandonment and that kind of thing, so that no part of them is being left behind, is far more important than sexual variety. Because to make love with a human being that trusts you, that knows you, that is known by you, that you care enough about to make sacred, sacrifice, when you give up something for another thing that is more valuable, you make it sacred. To give up unconscious sexual variety in order to include the traumatized elements that we when I say traumatized elements, what I'm talking about are areas in the psyche that are potentially as magnificent as any other area in the psyche. But through a series of abuses in an abusive culture, those areas like pristine rainforests in the psyche of an individual, have been clear-cut. And so there's a wound there. But they hold the potential of an old-growth forest when nurturing and love is brought to that terrain with a willingness to do the work, to sacrifice, to make sacred. Not in a sense of giving up and martyrhood, but to make sacred, to say that I see who you are becoming. I see who you are. I see who you can become with support in this way, with support in that way, working as a team in this way. And so, and so in this case, I'm going to sacrifice the expedient expression of some of my lust in order to hold the container for you becoming. And at the same time, I'm going to challenge you. I'm going to challenge you to be present, to build the muscle, to understand that control is not love, that to give someone freedom for their well-being is loving, being loving, and that we have to develop our own internal securities to a point where we can love enough to support our partner in doing what is best for them, without confusing sexual addiction and expediency with what is good for them. You know, there's so much made about freedom in the United States, and yet you look at the typical person, you know, drinking beer, watching 6 hours of TV, eating potato chips, fat on the sofa. And you say, okay, so you've got your freedom. To do what? Your freedom to addict yourself, to numb out, to veg out, to suppress emotion, to accomplish little of meaning to your soul? Freedom is not an end in and of itself. It is freedom to do and be your best self that makes freedom valuable. Meaning, the freedom to addict and ruin one's life is nothing to write home about. It's like, oh my gosh, I've got my freedom. Let me ruin my life as quickly as possible and hurt as many people along the way, and then go numb and die. I mean, there'd be something to be said about discipline and a dictatorship that challenge people to be their best selves. You know, so it's not about freedom for its own sake. It is the fact that with freedom comes the possibility to transcend our addictions, to transcend our ignorance, to transcend our misconceptions and lazy thinking, and become something more. And this is a very important distinction, that freedom is in service, that freedom is in service of becoming and growth. The freedom to ruin one's life, while necessary in order to have the freedom to transcend and become, is not sacred in and of itself. It is sacred as we use that freedom to become more. And so one of the reasons I felt very good about sustaining the monogamy is I looked at my sexual patterns, and I looked at, you know, how I'd invested sexual energy prior to this relationship. And in 90% of cases, containing that energy to respect my agreements with her meant an increase in the quality of my life. Because sex is just an amplifier, and it amplifies shit if you have sex in shitty relationships, and it amplifies divinity if you have sex in divine relationships. But because it is a pleasure that can be addictive, there is a temptation to pursue the pleasure of sexual variety. So I found this interesting. Last night, when we renegotiated the boundaries, my prediction was that the increase in freedom, that the increase in pleasure, that not fighting myself was going to lead this evening to a more interesting and exciting massage with that. And it did not. It was quite the opposite. And nor did it elevate, the sexual energy with my partner. I feel a little bit depressed. And so I thought I would, which got me then thinking to what is it about the boundary that had brought so much excitement in the last coming weeks. And it was the awareness, the intensity of tension of going right up to the boundary and feeling like in this moment I want nothing more than to slip my hand under that bra and make this woman happy and feel the flow of endorphins. I want nothing more than that. And I'm not going to do that. I'm going to come right to the edge and stop at the stated boundary because my partner is more important, because honor is more important. And so it just brought everything into very sharp focus. Every hand movement, I've got to pay attention to what the masseuse is doing, what I'm doing, etc. I can't just become unconscious. I've got to use discipline. And so in a certain way, because we go into things like forbidden fruit, why is it always so desirable? It's the fact that, there's consequence. I think that what makes forbidden fruit so interesting is the fact that it is forbidden. And I think the key is trust is the most sacred thing in any relationship. You lose trust, you lose safety. You lose safety, you lose love. You lose love, you've got a very short half-life pattern of lust that very quickly becomes uninteresting and, if continued, destructive. It's that simple. Trust is sacred, which is why I've never lied to a partner, won't break a boundary. So trust is sacred. So how do you create that excitement of forbidden fruit? It can be sensual play up to a very specifically defined boundary that brings all the lust and sexual energy to the surface. Like I mentioned Pop a little bit earlier. I mean, she is so alive and so present. It's such a phenomenal experience looking in her eyes. Her skin is like silk. Her touch is incredible. She'll lick my cheek or throat sometimes, and I just come alive with activity. And the feeling of power and the feeling of surrender, the liquidity of her movement and her wanting to give herself to me and her aliveness, the way she responds to the slightest touch, just coming awake is so beautiful. It's absolutely, incredible. But many, in Pop's case, prostitutes are very cynical around the sacredness of a marriage, etc., because very few people do hold such a boundary. And Pop has, as I've gotten to know her, had a number of heartbreaks herself, and I think it's completely wasted to get to know someone in a context of betrayal. I mean, why on earth would you want to, Pop is trying to seduce me to be her next boyfriend. Why on earth would you want to have a partner who's becoming your partner in the process of betraying their partner? It just seems so absurd. And the fact that Pop wants that rules her completely out as anyone that I can trust. but it does not rule out her gifts as a masseuse. So I think it's that boundary that has actually led me to really be present to every single moment, to in the imagination, to bring imagination alive. And what I've been doing with Pop is, after 1 to 2 hours of, being flamed into arousal, is going home and making love with my fiance in a passionate way that has brought our sexuality to a new level. So these nuances, which I've never heard articulated in these ways, and which I found myself driving home on the motorbike thinking about, I wanted to share with you in the hope that they help you navigate this mysterious tension of flow and restriction, of lust and sensuality, and container and trust building and safety. Good luck. And I'd love to hear if this helps your sensual, sexual, romantic journey in some way.